Good afternoon from San Antonio. We've got a real pleasure today. From the Texas General Land Office, we have Voices of Veterans. Um, Let me get my computer going. Some housekeeping things first. This is a presentation from the San Antonio Coalition of Veterans and Families. Our mission, the immediate assistance for homeless vets. Um, Please feel free to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. My wife is kidding me these days that my epitaph is going to be hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. We're very fortunate. Our speaker today is Mr. James Dillon. The explanation of what the program is, and we're going to hear from James also. The program spans all branches of service. The idea of never forgotten, what a wonderful idea in recording people's stories. Their contact info, and I found James very responsive. I found the office very responsive too. So they really want you to contact. All right, James, thank you for coming on. A
Thank
little bit
you.
of
Thank you for having me.
a little bit about you first. A veteran, how did you and how did you get into all this? This is an unusual thing.
So I'm not a veteran, and the how I got into the Texas General Land Office and doing the Voices of Veterans program is that I had some experience working in the VA loan space, and so part of the marketing for that was interviewing veterans for some of our marketing. So that kind of gave me a base in order to take over and run the Voices of Veterans program here for the state of Texas. And I've had such a great time interviewing Texas veterans so far that I've been here. There's been so many amazing stories of just being able to travel all over the state and meet so many amazing people.
I think that's a very unique. Now we're obviously talking on Zoom, but you actually go film people.
Oh
And
yeah. So when I first started, we were doing audio only, whether that be in-person audio only or over the phone audio only. But after I started, we said, no, we want to go and we want to get in front of people. We want to film these so that, the state of Texas Archives has film of these and honestly, I think the biggest thing is for the families of the veterans to have film of their loved one telling their story so they can look back and say, hey, there's my dad on camera, there's my grandpa on camera, and even here's my great grandfather on camera talking about his life, his time in the military.
which is wonderful. Give me an idea of the process. What happens?
So yeah, it's a really streamlined process. So all it is whether I meet somebody or we meet somebody out at an event that we're working at, or you sign up on our website, voicesofveterans.org, that at that point an email goes directly to me with the information you provide. It's just name, phone number, email, years you served, and the branch that you were in. And that information goes to me. I send an email back, and from that point, it's pretty quick, pretty easy. Bada bing, bada boom. Couple emails back and forth. What days work for you? What times work for you? If you want to be on camera, if you'd like us to go out to you, where do you live? And what's the best date that works for you? And that is truly all it is. And at that point, we show up and we're ready to go and tell your story. I mean, from my point too, I ask four questions before we start the interview. I say, what's your name? What branch were you in? What years did you serve, and what was your rank when you left your military service? From there, I have about 5 pages of questions that I go off of. But truly, I'm going to ask questions, and then I'm going to ask follow-up questions based on that. So, whether there's things that you don't want to talk about, I don't want to push that. I think that's the biggest thing. Because at the end of the day, I just want the person that's telling their story to feel like they got to get the information out there that they wanted to get out there.
Wonderful. Have you hit any surprises?
Oh man. So something that the Veterans Land Board does, which is, within the General Land Office, we run several state veterans homes. And so it is a lot of old cranky Vietnam veterans. And yeah, they have some stories. They have some stories. But I'll tell you, I think that one of my most surprising ones. So I was just up in Gainesville a couple weeks ago talking to a fella, and so he was telling me about when he was stationed in Germany. Um, I didn't know this, but apparently he met somebody who did rodeos in Europe. And so this guy was telling me about doing rodeos in Germany, France, and Spain, all throughout Europe in the 90s while he was stationed in Germany. He'd have some leave and he'd say, "All right, well, I'm just going to go and ride bulls and do roping events over in Spain for a few days while I'm on leave."
Now, when I worked for the VA, I covered a large part of the state. Not important what I did, but I traveled quite a bit.
Mm.
Texas is huge. Are
Oh
you
yeah.
the are you the crew and are you on the road all the time?
So I'm the one doing the interviews. I have a camera guy that comes with me. Not gonna lie, not the best when it comes to cameras. There's people that know way more than I do. And so the camera guy, so if I get the camera guy, he's the one setting up the cameras and he's the one doing the editing. Um, and I think that streamlines the process so well. But yeah, however, I need to give a shout out to the other people that I work with as well, the outreach folks, because they do such a great job of finding people and meeting people and telling them about the program just to be able to help me get in front of people in order to do the interviews. So, like Travis, who you had on, who's in Central Texas. I mean, he's done such a great job of just introducing me to people and spreading word about the program.
So I want people to understand we're talking about Hidalgo, we're talking about I'm trying to think what the Oklahoma border town is, Muleshoe.
Gainesville. I've been all the way to Gainesville, and I've been all the way down to Mission. Floresville and Kerrville, and everywhere in between.
Phenomenal. What a nice service. Uh, when you're done, what's the repository for the films? How does a how does a family access their loved one who's been filmed?
Yeah, absolutely. So everything lives within all the videos, they all live on our website. So that's going to be voicesofveterans.org. Then we also make sure to send a copy to the families. So make sure that they get a thumb drive with their story. And then it also comes with, a signed certificate from the General Land Office Commissioner, Don Buckingham. So that comes as well. So they'll have that. They'll have the physical copy, and there'll be the digital copy that's living online and in the Texas State Archives.
And I think about myself. I think everybody has a story to tell. And I was telling you before we started, I have a friend who unfortunately is very ill. Um,
Mhm.
but I'm going to mention it when we get done. I'm going to mention to him about sort of a closure. Being a vet never leaves you, but having some form of closure is such a wonderful opportunity, and very, very grateful to the program you're running. So,
Yeah,
yeah, just phenomenal. Okay, what have we missed? What else is should we know
man.
about this?
Well, I just want to say, as somebody whose family doesn't have a large military background, I was mentioning to you, my grandfather, he served in the army, and he was in Berlin after right after World War II during the building of the Berlin Wall. And so when I got this job, I didn't he died a long time before I was born, so I didn't really know a whole lot. So I had to call my mom up and say, "Hey, mom, could you tell me about Pop? In his military service, I don't really know a whole lot." So she was able to give me a rundown of everywhere that he was stationed and the things that he was doing. And so I think that it's important, and I wish that I had something like this, like a Voices of Veterans interview where somebody came in and asked more questions and tried to get more stories, that things aren't lost. If there was a hour long, 2 hour long interview with my grandfather, I would have loved to listen to that. So, even then, I'm a big family history person. I have my great grandfather's Civil War swords up on
Uh,
the wall. He was a Union soldier, and he was wounded in the Battle of Gettysburg. He suffered a head wound on day two. So, just being able to have these stories within the family, and something I always make sure to ask every single veteran that I interview, I say, do you have any family that served as well? Whether it be a father, grandfather, mother, grandmother. And say, do you have any stories about them? Did they tell any stories? So that those stories, their family stories, are then preserved in that interview as well. I interviewed a guy. He was able to trace his family history within the military all the way back to the Civil War. And so when I was interviewing him, he was able to list off at least 5 to 7 Civil War battles that his great grandfather had fought in. And so it's just so fantastic to be able to have these recorded for families.
I think, and I don't know why, but sometimes it's very hard for veterans to open up to their families versus you seem like a very pleasant person, but a stranger somehow can bring things out that just don't get said. And then I think about what I haven't shared with my family, and yeah,
Mhm.
I so wonderful.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. So it's such a rewarding thing to be able to do and talk to people, whether, and I've interviewed people that went to West Point, and guys that were drafted, and guys from small town and people from small town Texas that said, well, I might as well join the military, and they only did 4 years. And even then they all have important stories to tell.
Yeah. I I believe it.
Hmm.
Wonderful. What
Hmm.
else do we need to know? No, there's no cost. There's no there it, and they'll come to you. What a wonderful service. So what else do people need to know?
And if you're not comfortable being on camera, we're fine to just do an audio version. If you don't want us to drive all the way out to you, we can do the interview on Zoom as well.
Okay. Fantastic.
Mhm.
Thank you so much for what you're doing.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for what you're doing. Everybody's got something going on, and we're all trying to get to the right goal of helping out veterans.
And we're gonna hold it there.